And how many of you are already doing direct response or performance marketing campaigns? Okay, yeah, great. So we're going to give you some great reasons why performance marketing is actually the most effective type of advertising, period. I don't care what you've heard today about engagement and brand lists and all that kind of stuff. It's actually about return on your investment. And Gary and I actually, over I believe Glass and Wine last year, came up with an acronym, SMS. Advertising is about selling more stuff. That's the G-rated version. Advertising should be about selling your stuff. You're a business. You want your products or your services sold. So there's a lot of money, and there's probably a lot more money spent on eyeballs. We're here to convince you to spend a lot more money on actual results. Now, there are 3 reasons why performance marketing is the most effective type of advertising. The first is it's the most relevant to consumers. The reason that is that performance ads only get paid on the results of the ads, only when someone clicks on an ad or makes a purchase on an ad. So by default, they have to be the most relevant to the consumer, or nobody in our ecosystem makes any money. So they are the most relevant. The other is that they drive actual results. You can measure leads, you can measure downloads, you can measure video views, and certainly, most importantly, you can measure sales. And the third reason is it's the lowest risk type of advertising for advertisers. The publishers take on all the upfront risk. You as advertisers only pay for the results. So you're not wasting money on eyeballs. So here to tell real-world examples of why performance marketing drives ROI and accountability and some great case studies. I've got 3 panelists here. I'll let you each introduce yourself, but let me quickly, Klein from Whiz, David Naffziger from BrandVerity, and Andrew Zucker from Publisher Clearinghouse. Sorry about that. I got stuck on my key. So I'm going to hand it over to these gentlemen who are going to explain a few things. We've got some slides.
Hi everyone, as Rebecca said, I'm Klein. I'm with Whiz. We bill ourselves as an online performance marketing agency. I know it's 4:15. You guys are probably all trying to figure out where you're eating dinner tonight. So we all committed to making sure that we kept these really brief, keep your attention, talking 5, 6 slides, no selling, just letting you guys know what's out there and just be here to answer any kind of questions you might have. I'm glad to see so many people are actually doing it, so that's a good win for us. Quick little high level about Whiz. We're an online performance marketing agency, as I said. We've now partnered with a couple other traditional offline agencies and formed this hyper-marketing network of agencies, if you will. So the key thing here is, yes, a lot of logos, pretty traditional print, database marketing, local. All these agencies saw the need for partnering with a performance marketing agency, and together we formed kind of a nice united front, a full suite of services. And then more logos. So the key piece here is that, yes, we work with a lot of brands, we work with a lot of direct response companies. It doesn't matter what vertical you're in, if it's education or subprime catalog cards, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Everyone needs to SMS. Okay. And then feeding off what Rebecca said before, I see, well, frankly, hundreds of reasons why you need performance marketing, but the 5-year, what I deem kind of most important, and I'll say 21 billion reasons. So according to the IAB last year, performance marketing generated 21 billion in sales. So clearly not a channel you can ignore. Small investment basically means you want to test something, you could probably get it done for under $5,000, and you can test across multiple channels. So if you want to test email or social media, whatever it be, it's very easy to spend a little bit of money and get results, as I say, quickly, speed to market. It's something you literally, once you launch the campaign, you'll know results in 1 to 2 days. So while I do love TV and print and everything else, a lot of times we've all been there. It takes a while to develop the campaigns, make sure everything's in order. By the time it launches and out there, you forget what you did, and then you got to go back and actually measure it. Well, that's why we have measurable results as well. So again, getting the campaign out there doesn't cost much, get results really quickly, and then of course being able to measure back, how did this campaign perform? All things you find in performance marketing that you really won't find elsewhere. So what's our methodology for demand generation success? Defining the goal. So whatever the SMS may be, I'm going to keep using that now. It's either a lead or a sell. What do you want to get? Do you want to get someone to fill out your form because you have a great call center or a great follow-up process? Or do you want to just sell something immediately? Second, choose your agency or network. Go out there. There's tons of different agencies, as we all know, and I'm sure millions are here today. Different affiliate networks, performance networks. It's critical you do your diligence and find out who you want to work with. That's something amazing. I know we do this in just about everything we do in our life. Media planning. Figure out what the test budget is, which media channels you actually want to go into. So as I said before, if it's email or co-registration or social, doesn't matter. Figure out what it is you want to spend. Compliance and monitoring, that's another big piece. So once you launch a campaign, as we all know, you want to make sure it's pretty much representing what you want out there in the wild. Making sure it's performing the way you want, it's launched the way you want. And then the last piece, optimization, which is really, in my mind, what makes performance marketing unique. Looking at which traffic is performing well, which isn't, pricing or paying out accordingly. You can pay more for one form of traffic if it's doing better, or pay less for another. There's always a right price. And then finally, the case study. Like I like to say, yes, blah, 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 a bunch of results, we're amazing. That's not the point. The point here is we work with, in this case, we're showing a leading aesthetic laser surgery company. You might say, how the heck do they need leads? But they do. The point is, yes, we took them from kind of a small campaign to 630,000 leads per month, increased their return on ad spend almost to 250 to 300%. Again, great metrics. It's not so much the numbers that I want to talk to you about, it's the fact that we kind of take our own medicine, right? Figure out what's the baseline KPIs. Really get in bed with the advertiser, understand what they want to know, and what their key baseline metrics are. Then once we do that, we develop the test plan, the media mix, and then really just kind of dig in, launch the campaign, and then optimize. So this kind of virtuous circle, if you will, to make sure that we're constantly optimizing in real time, making sure hitting the volume budget and hitting the quality as well. So that's really the key. Again, summing all this up, immediate results and constant optimization. And as I promised, that's it.
So thank you all very much. My name is Naffziger from BrandVerity. We monitor paid search for brand and the clients. I'm also chair of the PMA Clients Council. And so the focus of my quick few slides is really to talk about the things that separate performance marketing from more traditional online marketing from a compliance perspective. And then also to touch on several of the fears that I think a lot of brand marketers may have coming into performance marketing, and sort of give a quick overview of some of the solutions that are available to address and manage those fears. So in the traditional marketing world, you've got these banners and maybe some emails, but you're fundamentally dealing with things that are much harder to know. If you're advertising for brand lift, are you certain that the ad is displayed on the right page and the right position above the fold to the right users that definitely paid for? There's a whole host of questions that can make that much harder to manage and figure out. In the performance marketing world, that gets washed away because you're principally focused on performance. So the desired outcome, whether it be a sale, SMS, subscription, a lead, something along those worlds. At the end of the day, it provides the opportunity to build accountable relationships with your advertising partners, and that accountability is something which is somewhat unique to this aspect of online marketing. Once upon a time, there were many reasons to be concerned about some of these relationships, these accountable relationships, where you may not know the other party all that well. Over the last sort of 5-ish years, a whole host of solutions have popped up that ensure that you have the ability to ensure visibility into your performance marketing campaigns. Around the issues that you would still have these problems in the traditional advertising world, but here there's some risk of brand capitalism. So in paid search, you've got us. If you're with Search Monitor, email, lashback, can certainly brainstorm a set of campaigns to run this. In the performance marketing world, you're giving up a little bit of control, in some cases a lot of control, but you're allowing thousands of marketers to try different approaches. And so to some extent you can learn from what's successful, but it gives you exposure almost instantly across the spectrum that you're looking for. I'm going to touch on one example in paid search where a voice over IP company implemented a reasonably creative strategy to what appears to be delivers their additional space. These aren't clients of ours that we're working with, they're just public information that we found along the way. So voice over IP is a very competitive industry. Folks like Madigan and the whole host of providers have come and gone, and they meet very, very brutally. Unlike some industries such as travel where there's a ton on paid search branded terms, there's no such thing that apparently exists in voice over IP. So we've seen one advertiser in particular take a shelf space strategy with their affiliates. So it appears they partnered with several providers, and they're using that to maximize their paid search shelf space and gain maximum exposure to consumers. So this is the unprotected voice over IP provider they have in the affiliate program. They appear to have removed the policy of their affiliates and appear to enforce it. That means that they get one ad at the top of the page. This is they have one ad at the top of the page, and then they've got their organic listing down below. But the rest of the page, the rest of the paid advertisements are effectively competitors. So while they certainly have principal billing, they're likely losing some searchers along the way to some of these third-party ads. Bona just take a different strategy. That's why they partner with two paid search providers, two affiliates to promote the Bona offers. And it looks like they're also managing it fairly tightly. Because we see Bona is at the top where you want it to be. And then the second ad in the top ad block, and the only ad is one of Bona's partners. And then the top ad on the right-hand bar is also Bona's partner. So right there they're capturing the bulk of the clicks that are probably coming on these search ads on these pages. And there's some competitors below and to the right, but they are far out of the top billing range. So you can certainly debate whether that's the right messaging going in, but if you sort of read through the ad copy from their partners, it becomes pretty clear that the partners are productively adding to the messaging that Bona is looking to deliver, and also likely delivering performance above and beyond what Academy has at the end. So that was my one example. We sort of discussed the pros and cons later to get into it. I'll pass it on to I'm going the wrong direction that way. That's you want the you want me for you? The flicker, the easy notes.
I'll just look it up. Or maybe not do so at all. So hi everyone. Okay. So I'm Andrew Zucker from Publishers Clearinghouse, and there will not be a big check at that door, but you are free to log on and enter.
That's a question though. That may get you something.
Yes, it may, right? And have a lot of people see me later on. So, Publishers Clearinghouse, for 60 years, we've been a very large performance-based marketer ourselves, a direct response marketer. You know us by the big checks and the flowers and the champagne and the doorbells ringing. Over the years, fast forward, we've built an online presence that I think is second to none, but I'm not going to be here to tell you guys. But I would like to talk about performance marketing, and I'll go quickly. And like Peter said, I'll try really hard not to sell. And first, just to put things in perspective, these are a bunch of the partners today, right, or advertisers, if you will, that work with our team to get their message out in front of PCA members. So pretty much well-known brands. Some of them, who would have thought, right? No, it's performance-based marketing, a fairly large one too. So some tips for success. Again, just free consultative. So 5 steps for a successful performance marketing effort. Definitely, for sure, be strategic and form a partnership with a publisher that is willing to, as Peter said earlier, get into the boat with you and be your partner and take risks with you as well. And, of course, demand accountability. Every day, we've got hundreds of partners that we deal with. we all come to work every day, our partnership team, we feel the risk. We feel like we're taking the risk. And I think that's important for brands to do, is to hold your partners accountable for it, right? Because they are sharing the reward. First-party user-reported data. At Publishers Clearinghouse, we definitely have, we have members, so we are at a bit of an advantage. We're at a bit of an advantage, right, because we have members that are filling out a lot of details about themselves, and they're definitely not lying about where they live. It's the big check in the doorbell, right? God forbid they win. And we also have a research business as well, which if there's time later we'll get into, that allows us to collect that data. And of course, create a connection, right? Understand the audience that you're putting your offer in front of, and create a connection with them. I mean, Progressive has Flo, right? And she's done a pretty good job for me. I like Flo. I laughed, and I wish she would host Saturday Night Live one day. Flo from Progressive. Anyone listening? Or the guy go get them. And high impact, right? High impact where it matters. And I said earlier about performance marketing. Gosh, I can't think of a higher impact that you could make by having partners with a publisher and having partners with a TV, radio, newspaper, whoever you're partnering with, to create the highest impact possible to get those users, or in our case, members, to react to a campaign. So how a performance campaign is executed. Definitely recommend establishing targeting parameters up front. Decide what you're looking for. What is ROI to you? How many forms are you looking for? And does zip code matter? Does birth date matter? Whatever matters, you got to set that up front and share that with the publisher. Make sure the offer is delivered to the audience that you're targeting, right? So make sure the publisher or an agency has good targeting parameters. Definitely ongoing measurement. I've seen a lot of our partners who don't make time for us, and they say, no, you know what to do. Don't worry, we'll talk to you at the end of the month. And it really it hurts the campaign. You've got to look at it every day. And if you can't look at it every day, you should hold your partner responsible to look at it every day and measure. So the partner can optimize. So let's take a quick look at auto insurance. I'll leave the name out, although I mentioned the Gecko and Flow earlier. I'm not going to say anything else. But it's an auto insurance advertiser. Some numbers here, they are definitely astounding, but I wanted to, again, put things in perspective of what we're talking about. At Publishers Clearinghouse, we have several million members that we reach. So in this particular case, you've got 750,000 people that were reached out to via an email. We've got a 250,000 opens. That's on a regular basis. Our open rate tends to be 30%. The click rate was fairly high as well. The conversion's high, and the conversion rate was 0.55. I know this is astounding, and you certainly shouldn't hold your TV partner and your radio partners, to these numbers here, because I don't think they can keep up with us. Right here. And then ongoing, right? You don't want it to be a one-hit wonder. You certainly don't, right? We see Flow every day. We see the Gecko every 15 minutes, right? So continuity is really, really important. Be conservative, start out slow, expand the relationship, boost performance through branding efforts. We definitely see that by combining branding plus a lead form, it definitely helps performance. So if you can afford to do so, again, watch your metrics, then go do it. And with that, we'll open up the floor.
Thanks, Andrew. I know you guys have mics under your chairs too, so I'll use those. I thought I'd ask a couple of questions. We've got a few minutes here, but I wanted to put this out for everybody in the audience. If you have a performance-based campaign that you've got some concerns about, or you want some questions specific to how you can improve accountability, ROI, your results, I invite you to create a case study with us right here. Ask these guys for some great tips on how you might gain some improvement. So I'll give you a couple minutes to think about that. Also, I thought I'd ask a couple questions, and then we'll open up for any kinds of questions as well. So, Andrew, you talked about first-party data, and that really, to me, goes to the heart of one of these big debates, I suppose, in this situation where you're working with third-party marketing partners. Who owns the customer? I mean, Publishers Clearinghouse has this tremendously large, loyal viewership, user base. I don't want to call them consumers because they're not buying anything from you necessarily, but they are, you certainly have the brand there. But then you also pass through other brands. So can you expand a little bit on the first-party data and what that value is that's very unique to this channel?
Sure. Well, they're definitely consumers, and they definitely want to buy more stuff. But you're right. We don't sell them directly up front, at least. So the first-party user-reported data that I'm talking about, again, we are the beneficiary of having a form as a business, right? So we can't engage with any new consumers or new members without them filling out this form. So it starts with where they live and who they are, and if they're Mr. or Mrs., and of course their date of birth, which most people fill out, although there's no asterisk next to it. And then we have a research business on the side as a part of our center of our universe, our data machine, and we build panels. We build panels for research companies. Research companies come to us and say, we need 12,000 people to answer some questions for Dove, let's say, and she looks like this, XYZ. So this panel is something that we own, right? It's our business. Folks, our members are agreeing to answer questions so we can make their experience more enjoyable. We can give them offers that are more meaningful to them. If they own a car, we want to introduce auto insurance providers to them. If they don't own a car, and there's no car in the household, we don't want them to see an auto insurance ad, which makes a lot of sense. Again, we are in a somewhat enviable position because we don't need the blue ties of the world, right? We have the best data there is. Sorry, but we do. We have the best data there is because she told us whether or not she has the car or not. She told us whether or not there's kids in the house. This was one of the panel questions. And you're right. Over the years, and we're talking multiple years, we have built a relationship with our members. But that said, I think it's really important. We're not the only company out there that has first-party data. I think it's really important that you ask that of the publishers you're either giving money to. I hope you're not just giving it to them in a non-performance way, but if you are, God bless you, and God bless them, you should ask those questions, right? How are they targeted? And with all due respect to the Blue Pies and Carcasses of the world, and for the sponsor here, one of them, it is what it is, right? It's behavioral, it's kind of hearsay data that may or may not work. So.
Well, and I think I like the relevancy tie back because you by default give your advertisers the most relevant consumer to target.
Exactly.
And I think there are a lot of publishers out there that are doing that. I know publishers that are actually selling their data for more money than they're making on their performance ads because it's such valuable information, and it really depends on the publisher. But do you have anything to add to that, Peter?
Yeah. You ask me these tough questions, I'm light shining in my face. So we have a little bit of a different angle than Andrew might, but it comes back to the same place. So we actually manage data from first-party data from other companies, other advertisers. So the important thing is that they want to do it for a few reasons. One, they can do it on a CRM basis to help communicate with their customers to their own message. And the other piece is it actually helps defray marketing costs. So we're working with someone, I'll use PCH as an example, though they won't do this. An advertiser is advertising with us, PCH, whatever it is. They have a list. We actually do email marketing. We're pretty much experts in that field as well. We'll do it in-house, and we'll help with whatever the list is. We take in lists, doesn't matter if it's a credit reporting company or sweepstakes based or research, whatever it is. Since we work with so many different advertisers, we can target an offer to that subscriber base from that advertiser. So basically, we're helping them monetize their list, generate money, and then do a rev share on that. So whatever they're spending with us or anywhere on their actual lead generation costs, they can make money on the backside of it by giving out their list to help market to.
So there's some other interesting kind of elements, and I think that's probably relevant to this show, which is so much of the talk has been about branding. And so how can you use a third-party marketing partner, like a publisher, to enhance your branding? And Dave, you showed some examples of that and how they, some of these publishers can be so niche and targeted that they actually allow for greater innovation in branding and test campaigns that a brand might not be able to do on its own.
I can't speak to the specifics of that bonus campaign looked at, but I know that a number of merchants we've worked with a set of sort of publishers that they've authorized to bid on brand terms and situations, things like that. And they will go through every step of the process with the publisher. They will review their ad creative, review their landing page, review the context. In many instances, the publisher will go ahead and build a dedicated site just for the collection of that, for that particular landing page that they're going to run alongside the bonus dash and paid search. And in the sort of traditional media world, that might be called a microsite, and that might cost sort of $50K to $100K at the agency. And here in the performance marketing world, they're doing that just for the opportunity of running their ads alongside the brands and paid search. And so that gives certainly the landing page that the agency builds would be more viewable. But you'll be certain in either case that it'll be on brand because you've got that sort of right of review. And you also have the levers to tweak the commission structure around that, so that if you feel or if your metrics show that you're overperforming, the affiliate is making an inordinate amount of money, typically there's a relationship structure to change that. And you can move those numbers up or move those numbers down based upon your agreement with the partner that you're basically giving them sort of a semi-monopoly right to some extent, and you've got a lot of leverage there to ensure that the financial arrangement works out in favor of all parties, as well as the brand relations, as part of that as well.
Your comment about the publisher page might not be as beautiful, the microsite as a brand might invest in on their own. It reminds me, I have to share a publisher story. It's this publisher, he's been doing this for 11 years, and it's called KenRockwell.com, and his name is Ken Rockwell. And he's a photo enthusiast, and you look at this blog, and you go, oh my God, he built this thing 11 years ago, why doesn't he update it? Because he gets 1 million visitors a day, he drives millions of dollars in ad revenue per year, he refers photo enthusiasts to Adorama and B&H Camera, I think more than they can drive on their own. And he doesn't want to mess with the formula because just like Google, sometimes the simplistic, page works, and it works for him. So it's a great fun site.
And also add, I think typically, so it'll perform, and you can guarantee that publishers can ensure that it performs because that's how they're making their money based on the performance of that page. But they're also, unlike your traditional microsite project where you get a finished product, that product goes live and is never touched again. There's very much an interrelationship where the publisher is probably going to be tweaking small little things here and there to the extent that the advertiser is comfortable in sort of wanting to use that experimentation. But they're going to be tweaking that and testing like the model because every improvement that they make to the performance of that landing page, they make money. And so they're incentivized to make it perform to the best of their ability.
Yeah, I just have to completely agree with that. I mean, fifth step or whatever step, optimization.
Yes.
I mean, I'm humble enough to know that testing is the only thing I know. So I can't tell you how many times I've tested, a new creative director, and it was beautiful creative, and once it goes out there, it performs worse than something that looks like my 4-year-old slapped it together. So you have to keep testing. You never know. It'll go somewhere else, a color here and there. It's amazing how little silly things can make a difference. And going back to the other piece about publishers, I mean, I pretty much play all 3 different things, the network, the publisher, and advertiser, so I get to see that full spectrum. I've been in this space 12 plus years, so kind of lived every single one of them at one point or another. But other than dangling money in front of a publisher, the best thing you can dangle is a logo, any kind of big brand where they can get an opportunity because they wouldn't necessarily have that access. The same thing with an advertiser. They're focusing on their brand and sales and all the important components of who they are. They don't have the time to go out and figure out, here's the best email or here's a great search partner. So we can play that side of the fence as well and make that relationship happen.
So let's, looks like we've got a few minutes left. Let's open it up for questions. So any case studies anybody wants to share, get some great advice and tips? Or any other questions? Yeah. She's got a microphone there.
For Peter, my name is Michael Lamb. I work for MediaMind. I'm curious what products, tools, either custom or off the shelf, you guys use as part of your performance marketing campaigns.
That's a good question. We have a lot of technologies. So we have a fair amount if it's on our email side or on affiliate network. We have our own proprietary technology. Less on the performance side, but if you look at something like search or display, we'll use a DSP. Also on the search side, we use Marin. So we use best-of-breed technologies where we know, you know what, we don't have 2-3 years to build something that's going to be as robust as what's out there off the shelf, and we'll supplement it with what technology, core competencies we have in-house. So it is a mix of internal and external.
There's also there's some solutions you not mentioned, some great solutions to help manage email unsubscriptions. So if you're guessing you have a workflow subset, you'll look at something similar in-house. But that's a great solution to help you manage the unsubscribe and ensure that your message gets, that unsubscription is effective across all your marketing partners as well.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to everyone across the board, I have probably more licenses than I know what to do with at this point. So there's everything from compliance to actually prospecting and looking out there to find out who we want to partner with. I must have 7 or 8 tools that I pay for that are amazing. I mean, talking about everything from scraping banner ads and seeing who, you have to kind of reverse engineer sometimes, but it's anything I look at for compliance is also a good prospecting tool because you can see who's out there in the email world, who's out there in the banner world. So it's not just actually delivering the results, it's finding those that can help you deliver them too.
Yes.
Hi, Kevin Hicks, Permission Data. A question for Andrew. When you're building your panel list and asking all the personal information, 2 questions. How deep do you go? How many questions do you ask? And where do you start seeing consumer fall off?
Good question. So we have upwards of 400 pieces of data on our VIPs, the ones who just love us. And they keep answering questions because they truly feel like if we get to know them better, that either their chances are better or they're closer to us, right? Clearly, the law prevents them from getting their chances better, right? Just for answering more questions, and we are highly regulated, so that won't work. But the psycho semantics of it are such that people really want to be our friends, and you can go on our Facebook site, Twitter, and Facebook site mostly, and see what people are saying. They're waking up in the morning and saying, "Good morning, PCH, is today the day?" Right? And we're responding actually, right? And we have personalities on our fan sites as well. So if we keep asking questions, they'll keep answering. Wow. The second piece is it's called PCH Online Surveys. So you could check it out online. There are chances to win. So it is incentivized, and there are unique sweepstakes involved, so that we could reward people for answering questions, very similar to the way MPD and Greenfield and the other host of others, SSI, et cetera, they earn $100 or earn a chance to win $100, just answer these questions, and brands do it as well, right, through 4C. So we have various methods of asking questions and keeping them engaged, and we happen to be, humbly I'll say, it's not my team, it's the sweepstakes folks. We have a good track record of keeping people engaged.
Great.
So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? No, great. All right. Well, I think that's our time then. Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it and letting us tell you how great performance advertising is as opposed to everything else which is bad. So thanks for joining us.
Hopefully it'll be a nice ride.
We're about 80 questions deep. 80 people to answer that is boring. That is. Then we're creative.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone else in that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at the application data, which comes from their 200,000 panels.
Yeah.
It's like 3,000.
Yeah, sure. Brought back those memories. Incredible. Yeah. Right. That's right. Thank you. No, and it's kind of silly. And actually having it with us. Yeah. Every now and then. And actually when you see companies like this, American Express.
Good job, dude.
Yeah, you guys are nice. Yeah, an old kind of like page. Okay, but you know, an old page and like you get this mailer and it's like, you know, you get sign up, you know, today and receipt man, X, Y, and Z, 2 free issues of a magazine or whatever, and I think it's so effective. It's hard to get them all, you know, to 80.
Well, I'm actually,
You were dangerous.
it's funny.
Oh, no shit. And I was doing all the rest now. And myself and some like great partners.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Search manager with GM. Awesome. And so I'm working on the global team, so kind of global purview. We've used in the past like AdGuru, the BrandVerity tool, Search tools, competitive monitoring. Kind of going through an evaluation of their agency. We work with tools, so looking at AdGuru again, I'm curious to hear how much you guys have your
So AdGuru has got some great solutions in place for they do some like bid estimation stuff and some competitive spend stuff. They also have, at least in the search landscape, some of the better sort of raw keyword research tools like who's bidding on what and what keywords are they using and stuff like that. Our approach is somewhat different, so we're sort of very compliance oriented first and foremost. And by compliance, I mean like there usually should be there needs to be a process around that you want to have an outcome. So like if your objective is to maximize placement on the page, then we can help with that. If your objective is to take down, maximize your trademark protection, so take down whatever set of that might be violated. And there's going to be tons of help with that.
Yeah, and that's our big focus with using a tool like that, essentially kind of getting on the competitive landscape.
Yep.
So if you're doing what, globally, you're like everywhere, right? Like gentleman's agreement.
Right.
So we're trying to kind of get a picture, not globally, this is like a lot of our priority markets.
Right.
This is what the landscape is, and then what competitors are doing in terms of using our ad copy.
Yeah. So one of the differences you'll find between our solution and their solution for that use case is we will retain all of the source data. So you'll get a lot of good aggregated reports out of what they get. We'll have aggregated reports as well, but you also can access and dig into every single observed ad over the course of monitoring, which can be anywhere from a couple times a day to like 280 times a day, whatever the case might be.
Our members will never see
I mean, if it's at all interest, I can certainly give you login demo, walkthrough, today.
I think that'd probably be a good idea. Do you have a card? I actually don't have any cards on me,
no worries.
Definitely reach out, send me a link then.
Yeah, I'd love to show you what we can do, and if it's useful, great, and if not, so be it. Okay, awesome. Thanks for taking time. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Take care.
Hi, how are you? Good. I'll go ahead and finish with that. Kevin, are we still members?
Dave, nice meeting you.
Yeah, likewise.
Because enjoy the presentation. You now are the owner of 3.2
I am
megabytes of
so
beauty.
excited. I'll use it in my next chat. I'll do my best at impersonating Andrew.
I can make that like an affiliate relationship. I can give you a 10% cut. Whatever revenue from that presentation.
Right. I'll see what I can do. Nice meeting you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, hey, very good to meet you, Andrew. I was. I like the perspective. You got a lot of good insight. All right.
Well, that's a great
Definitely more of a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I want that person to.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. I love your card. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Did you? For sure. Always. Okay. Thank you. Good job.
Great to see you again.
I'll see you.
Yeah. We're trying. Not romantic, but we're trying. Find out there. Me and Mike would love to know more. Yeah, I'm in New York, so downtown Manhattan. I've heard that down on water.
Yeah. Okay. Would love to. I'd love to.
Thank you so much. We have a lot of the fancy food trucks. Are you going to stay for this one, Mike?
Okay, me too. I'm just going to be a restaurant. Yeah.
That's right around the corner from where we are.
Yeah, I used to be at Wall and Water, and I don't remember what it's called.
There's so many more now. You name a nationality and everything. I'm amazing. You hear about Steve Long south of Wall.
But the problem is they make it out on some of the city.
Maybe that's a new thing. We start investing in patio furniture.
We have a joke, right? I live near Los Angeles, and these guys come in the summertime and make the cabanas with umbrellas and chairs, and you rent them by the hour.
That would be phenomenal. I'm sure they'd find a way to tax us for that. We don't plug it in anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I still haven't been able to chat with you. I've meant to set up some time today, and I never did, about industry self-regulation and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Are you in the office tomorrow?
Yes,
Can I run over?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the meeting.
Oh, come on, Gary. We're going to have this lovely blonde lady, and that's it. Nobody else to worry about.
We have a lot of people coming in town the next 2 days for like a whole summit we're doing.
Let's do it here.
You sure?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's fine. Yeah, long conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah.
Great here. Sounds like
We were
a lot.
It's so hard to get from subjective to
Yeah.
business model unstated and who's going to benefit, and it requires to be objective. It requires companies saying, here's my stuff, go ahead and look at it. Can't we get it?
And I'm sure it also requires that commitment too, and that you're right, the commitment to saying, well, we're willing to give up some information that should benefit everybody overall.
Right.
I see it like you want to look at it years ago. Because even the ones that I may think not so positively, like the ones I mentioned, are getting involved. The interesting thing is that
margarita.
that we would not include in this. They can be members of the but do we trust them to? And if they don't want to, then maybe it's the certification that they don't have that. The good people will work with us.
Look at that and say, we could do it. It's not anybody's opinion.
Yeah.
It's much more about
The objective thing would be.
everything else is subjective.
Sure.
And then we're.
When I was at the PR trade system, that was always the big issue. Everything is subjective. We're trying to find objective measurements and gauge that.
Sure.
Right.
Timing is really good for that.
Great.
That would allow for openness. Yeah. We're going to consider it.
All right, that's great. Yeah, definitely. I know you're still looking at these things, right?
The other thing is they can't do. Experience in the sales sacrifice has given us a lot of awareness in Washington and opened a lot of doors. I think the other thing is we want to create not an official thing, create certainly an environment environment where the regulators and our government can go focus on the bag. We'll try.
Okay.
How's everybody else at home?
No.
Oh, that was your bag back. Damn, I should have rummaged through it. Who knows what that's like?
Take care, guys.
Good meeting you.
She's got a new gig in JP Morgan. She's going to move from the client service part of the bank to risk analysis.
Hi, guys.
Is it cool? You want to do that?
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, hello. A small but enthusiastic crowd. If you guys would like to move up a bit, that would be really nice to see you and this here. But
There's no power outlet, but there's parking.
all right. No, we don't need volunteers. All right, so.
We've got microphones, if you're comfortable. Look, you're here.
Yeah,
Now you're.
Thank you. I'll sit up closer to the crowd. Making the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh my God.
We appreciate it.
Please.
Anyway, last session of the day, I guess this is part of the last session of the day mindset. I'm going to introduce you to Della, who is our moderator today, talking about what fashion can teach general marketers about customer acquisition and relationships. And Dana has a substantial background in the fashion business on all sides of the business, from being a model to being in the mergers and acquisitions side. And there's some transitions I made. We'll take And who knows when these things could happen again. So let me
Two beers, that's all I have.
I'm going to give you the microphone.
All right. Okay, I guess this is, Elaine doesn't want me sitting next to her. Put on too much perfume. No, I have to say, we all had a chuckle when Gary invited us to do this, because it's pretty funny. What can marketers learn from the fashion business? Because we all kind of know that fashion, or maybe you don't know, hasn't exactly been a leader in marketing. Anna Wintour has gone on the record now admitting that her one area where her one big career mistake was, of course, ignoring for so long the power of the internet and social media. And it's amazing when you think Chanel, Dior, Prada, all these huge, massive companies didn't have websites until maybe 2002, 2003. And it was the fear of ruining the mystique of the brand. And Quynh and I had a chuckle, Quynh Mai, because we were laughing how the old guard was just sort of hoping that if they ignored it for long enough, it would hopefully go away, like some sort of fungus or something. But those annoying, nerdy people in San Francisco, please, just go away. You have nothing to do with us. But finally, they were late adopters and certainly fast followers, and probably doing a lot of stuff in marketing now that is more progressive than a lot of other industries are doing. So I hope today that's what you should take away something, that the fashion industry now, in 2012, is doing correctly. Maybe use it in your own business. So, like many smart CEOs, I've surrounded myself today with three very, very brilliant and accomplished women, and hopefully they'll cover for my incompetence. So we have Elaine Chang here, who, and here, Elaine, I should know enough about you to refer to my notes. She has an MBA from Harvard Business School. That's pretty cool. And she works more in media than in fashion. But she worked sort of not the beginning of Gilt Group, right? But a year into Gilt Group. And she was her last media job was at Winter Media with Jan Winter. And now she's at a very, very hot contemporary apparel brand, Tibi,
which is going through a transitional period themselves and really taking it to the next level, and marketing is certainly top of mind from what I hear, right? Okay. And then we have Quynh, mine, who I don't know much about where he went to school or any of that stuff, but
How about Go Bears?
okay. But Quynh for 15 years was at the ad agency Lippmann and worked with Burberry, David Yurman, Smartwater, Diane von Furstenberg, and these were your campaigns, right? Any other real big notable campaigns?
The biggest campaign moment might be Angelina Jolie for St. John.
Oh, wow, okay.
Smartwater with Jennifer Aniston. I mean, those campaigns really cut through. Even though St. John was a terrible failure, I can say that now. But, working with a lot of, during that time period in the early 2000s, really working with celebrities. That was the first time, high luxury brands were really bringing celebrities on to endorse them, which is a big change. Now it's pretty commonplace, but at that time it was new.
Okay. And then Jennifer Talbott at the end, who has been, she reminded me last night when we were on the phone, more public relations. Don't ask me too many marketing questions. Public relations. Public relations director for DBS, Diane von Furstenberg, the store Intermixed for 5 years, Dolce & Gabbana US, and she currently has her own, I don't want to say PR. Okay.
And branding company.
Okay, and she's working with a designer that I'm wearing, Joyce POC, and many other designers. And Quynh, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over you. Moving image and content. And besides just fashion films, what else?
We're a content and visual marketing agency working primarily in the fashion and beauty space. So working with brands like Estee Lauder, Erin Lauder, Mugler, who worked on the Lady Gaga Walking the Runway show in Paris Fashion Week. I think that's one of the things that really cut through from fashion to mass media. We're American Ashley Olsen, and really taking old-fashioned branding and marketing principles in print, which is my background, and taking them into the digital age.
Thanks. And I currently, in the last 2.5 years, I found my own strange little niche of advising private equity firms on their retail and apparel acquisitions. Because, gosh, big surprise, investment bankers don't know that much about fashion. And I'm of the strong opinion that not every brand has value, and they like to shop any old thing. And I think a lot of, as I always say, that dog needs to be put down, or that might have been a good acquisition in 1994. So hopefully I'm adding some value to private equity, venture capitalists, any investor that's looking to invest mainly in the contemporary arena, because the U.S. just hasn't been great for establishing big, high-end designer brands. The Italians and the French have a monopoly on that one. So New York, as any of you know that are in fashion, is really all about that middle market, the contemporary brands. The Tibi is a great example. And a strong brand. You're going to make more money. I mean, Michael Kors, I knew him when he was on the verge of bankruptcy, and it wasn't until he got into handbags and accessories that he really took off. But he was smart, because he stuck around and he just kept. He finally found his business model, and it took him years, and he started in 1988. So I'm not going to have any suspense here. I think we might as well just start with, what is working in the way of marketing in the fashion industry right now that maybe other industries could learn from. I mean, as Gary was saying, what's the most important new customer acquisition marketing marketing strategy that we can all learn right now from the fashion industry?
Dana, you mentioned it. Fashion was very slow to the party, and people joke all the time that if they couldn't fire you at Condé Nast, they put you in the digital department, and I think that's still the case in some publications at Condé Nast. But I think one of the things that fashion has done really well is embrace the power of a strong image. And when you see Instagram selling for $1 billion, it's selling off the backs of the idea of Kodak. Instagram is just a modern-day Kodak company. And I think what fashion's been really able to do, as they've tiptoed slowly, painfully into the digital age, is use the power of the image to evoke the brand and the brand emotion. because people are sharing images so easily. If you post an image on Facebook, it has a better return rate and response rate. Images are so powerful. Instagram has become a huge power in mobile marketing, and Pinterest is so strong in driving site traffic. It's all the power of the image. There's virtually no text. And Tumblr as well, being image-based. So I think one thing that fashion has always been a part of is a strong, powerful photographic image. And I think other brands now are starting to follow suit and investing the money that's needed to cut through the clutter with a strong picture.
And also, I think it's funny, like in technology, as much as it is so insular, and we've come away from our human dynamic, there's still human emotion to want to feel intimate with one another, and the power of the image of taking photos of yourself and of your friends and things that are real to you is a strong way of connecting with your consumer and using that. I mean, there's like Rebecca Minkoff, for instance, used Instagram images for her ad campaign because it connects to the consumer. They no longer feel like they're being sold if it's something like old school marketing and old school photography that was used in the past. They're a lot more discerning and craving something that feels familiar to them.
And not overly fabricated, right? Something that feels fresh and sort of impulsive, right? Like
Lady Gaga for the September issue this year got so much backlash because she was so overly retouched on the cover of Vogue, so much so that she took pictures of herself with her camera phone, almost naked, and posted it to say, "I'm not afraid of how I look." A Condé publication like Vogue might want to retouch me so that I might, show a different image, but I'm not afraid to say who I am because she understands the power of truthful marketing
and transparency, and just knowing that you've been transparent. So just go with it.
Elaine, what's working in customer acquisition for you?
So I think when Tibi has been around for 15 years, it's actually a contemporary label that was founded in Hong Kong, and the husband and wife team were stationed there, and then they moved back to the States in 2000, and the brand has really taken off since then. And its foray into the online space really started at the beginning of 2011 in terms of a formal launch of an e-commerce site. It's primarily a wholesale business, but fortunately, e-com has really taken off. So when I, from the marketing point of view, when I look at acquisition, I obviously look at it from an ROI perspective and measurability perspective, in addition to what Jennifer and Quynh talked about in terms of, using Instagram and Pinterest to really communicate the consumer passion for a brand and the brand positioning. Right now, what's I think still, and I regret to say this, but is really Google, right, in terms of both SEO and SEM. And what's so interesting is that obviously we all know how smart Google is, but they've basically taken the branded keywords that belong to you, so Tibi, Tibi.com, Tibi dresses, Tibi shirts, and they've made a business out of it. And you can choose not to play and then rely on your organic search results, but if you do, you will lose out to the retailers like Shopbop and Neiman, who we love, and they help grow our business every day. But if you do want to grow your e-com business, you do have to invest in SEM. If I know that I can pay $1 and make $1 and a penny from it, then I need to do that all day, every day. So for us right now, we are investing in SEM, and we are investing a lot in search engine optimization, which is not the glamorous side of the business or the sexy side of the business, but it is one that does pay returns over time. So,
naive question, but is that expensive? I actually don't know.
Well, it depends. On the SEM side, which I'm sure most of you guys know, it's a bidding system, right? So you have your list of keywords that you want to target, and Google's auction system will set the bidding. So it can become very expensive. So on one hand, the more expensive the keyword Tibi becomes, the better it is, because other retailers and other bidders are looking at that as a valuable term to drive business.
And I'm assuming it was probably pretty expensive for a lot of the latecomers, especially when you're Chanel Dior. I guess it doesn't matter because they have so much money. But and then on to the next question of, I realized that the reason I'm sure that there was this reluctance to adopt the internet and technology, and suddenly it's available to the masses, which goes against everything that really fashion's about, especially the more elite luxury brands. And social media and the internet has sped up everything, certainly the fashion industry, and made everything more accessible and democratic, and you can see products. You used to, in the 1980s, have to actually walk into a store. Sorry, I don't know how to use the microphone here. But how do you build relationships now between customers and brands using all the new technology available and still preserve the mystique and cachet of your brand? Even if you're a luxury brand or a contemporary, because Tibi has to be cool too. I mean, if Tibi gets too, brand degradation, degradation, can't say that word. It's always, this huge fear when you're in the apparel industry of, oh my gosh, because we're dependent on the latest trends. And if you go out of style, you're in big trouble. So how are you all using social media, Facebook and Twitter? And
I think it's the one thing I've noticed that's been important is, like, for instance, DKNY and also Moderator have their own bloggers. So they're PR people or whatever behind the scenes, that they're able to be accessible to the consumer and have a voice of the brand without, you're not talking to Oscar, you're not talking to Donna, so there's still some of the mystique of the brand, whereas DPF is really her own, Diane's her own blogger, and she's the voice of it, but that's what she built her brand on, is having that accessibility and talking to her consumer directly. But there are still brands that need to protect their image, and they're doing that via, I think, the most effective one is by putting somebody else out there, so there's still sort of the Wizard of Oz.
Well, it has to be, sure. It's the Emperor's New Clothing. I mean, it's always like, why do you need to buy another pair of shoes? Why do you need another bag?
So you still can have a dialogue with the consumer without taking away from the fact that there is some bigger person behind it, because I think there is that fear of being too democratic and taking away from, the little bit of a caste system that goes on in fashion.
Quynh, what's your opinion on this? How do you still preserve the brand mystique and get out there and hustle your brand through all these different social media outlets? And
I meet with CMOs and founders of companies all the time who contemplate this issue and fear of denigrating their brand by being too mass. But the problem is, and what I always say to them is, if you don't own the conversation, someone else will. So there are brands out there who won't be on Instagram, yet if you search their hashtag, there's tons and tons of fans and consumers who are putting up their own content. So, you have to get ahead of that conversation so that you can, try to control it, be a part of it, engage in it. If you don't, your fans will. I think that the fear that brands have is that the mystique will be gone, but I think that's been long gone. When you see 14-year-olds carrying Louis Vuitton bags, and in the age of Gossip Girl, that high schoolers in New York can be wearing designer apparel, and every teenage girl knows who Valentino is. I think that idea of trying to keep that facade and that mark that no one can touch you is also erroneous when you can buy a Chanel lipstick for $20. And that fragrance is what sells Chanel, not necessarily tweed suits. So there's a bit of a moment of crisis right now. I think in most companies, not just fashion, but across the industry, do I take part in this scary social media moment or not? The fact is that consumers are doing it for you if you don't do it yourself.
Elaine, what are your thoughts on still preserving the cachet of a brand and
I think
strategies that you've you're new at Tibi, right? But at Guild Group, I guess at Guild it wasn't such a big thing, right? Because you were trying to offload products that nobody else hadn't. They didn't sell the first time, right?
Right. And at that time, I didn't quite understand why some of the higher tier brands that we were pitching to came back with, we're really fearful of brand denigration. Because my mind from the Guild perspective was that we have a really beautifully designed platform. It's members only. This is at the start. But now working at a brand proper, I do really see what the concerns are. Because I think that in this age where consumers have so much choice at their fingertips. They can engage with the brands from the $20 Chanel lipstick to the $2,500 new shoes from the collection. It does create sort of in some ways an over-democratization, and it does affect the brands. So I think to answer your question, right now with Tibi, it's something that we think about a lot because on the one hand, marketing has really moved into the online space, and what you're talking about there is the ability to generate millions, if not billions, of impressions, depending on how you do it. But then what you do realize is that not all of those impressions are equal in terms of who those eyeballs actually belong to. Is it the right customer that you're going out after, or is it the customer that will actually convert and buy something on your site or one of your distributor sites? So I think right now we are taking it in a very measured way. We are on all of the platforms. In particular, we love Instagram and Pinterest for the reasons that Quynh cited, because we think we're able to communicate the brand's positioning without actually talking about the brand product. It could be a beautiful photo of the New York City skyline or some detailed shot of something that someone's wearing, but that is in line with who we are as a young woman's designer collection. And I think the other thing that we're doing is being very particular of the type of programs that we run. So Facebook is a lot of brands do a lot of giveaways and sweepstakes, and we're sort of staying away from that because it does give the message that you can kind of get stuff for free over and over again. So I think it's just being very particular and very thoughtful about how you use each of the platforms, and sometimes being the first to the party is not necessarily the best thing.
Right, sure. Jennifer, in public relations, what's working better right now, do you think, to drive a brand? Facebook and Twitter versus the company's own website?
I think it has to be a whole 360. I think you have to all work together on it. You can't just use one without the other. It should drive back to your website. It should drive back to a one message of the DNA of the brand. But I think you have to use it smartly, otherwise it's just white noise.
Yeah, I sort of, and again, I'm not a PR person, so I take a different approach. I think that your site is your flagship, and by the time somebody takes the time to type in your URL or link through to you, they've crossed a big divide, a huge hurdle. And by the time they get there, I feel like they just want to see products because they've been convinced someplace else. I think what's really interesting in Jennifer's business and the way that she works is that marketing and social and PR is all merging into one. It's a very, very gray area right now, I think, for all industries, especially fashion. And you don't know where one ends and what another leads. So much of it is about idea. Who has the right idea to cut through all the clutter? And fashion has been very bold about that. One of the big successes in fashion as of late was a short fashion film that Dior did, and there's nothing to it. It was to a Depeche Mode soundtrack. Models running around wearing a beautiful Dior dress. But what was interesting is they shot it at Versailles, and somehow they shot it so that it looked like the girls were running Versailles completely alone, and that there was nobody else in Versailles but them. And just the shock and awe value of that drove, I think it's up to 4 million views on YouTube.
Which is huge for a fashion film.
Huge for fashion film. And I think that's one thing that other brands can take from that. Sometimes you don't have to have a great comedy skit like Old Spice. Sometimes it can be something incredibly beautiful and awe-inspiring, and that gets people to engage in it, even if they don't love fashion or if they don't love the subject matter. It's something that's so beautiful that they want to share it.
Okay, Elaine, did you want to comment on this? No? Okay. You're good. She's very cute. She's ready for her nap. Okay. Well, retail has been the main driver of most fashion brands, of all fashion brands for the last 20 years. And it's a great way to control your image. And it certainly has helped promote globalization, certainly in China. But it's a double-edged sword because you have to submit to the tyranny of your sales productivity. And the online channel is growing the fastest. I mean, do any of you foresee a time when online sales will exceed retail sales? And do you have any brick and mortar versus e-commerce comments? Do you think they're going to stay balanced, or do you think online will exceed retail sales in 10 or 20 years?
You know, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When I hear CMOs and CEOs talk about, you know, brick and mortar versus online, I get actually pissed off because I feel like, do you think the customer is so idiotic that they can't shop however they want to shop? It's not that you saw an ad in your Pavlovian monkey and you clicked through because you saw a shoe. It's just that you saw something you liked, and it's up to you as a smart consumer to decide, do I want to go to Nordstrom where I know the shoe lady is such a lovely person, or do I want to go to Shopbop because I just put my kids to bed and I only have an hour before, you know, I need to crash. You know, people will consume content and commerce in any way they want. You just have to make yourself completely accessible to it. So I think one of the big issues is that people put online marketing and regular marketing into different funnels as if human beings walk down the same funnel to the path of purchase, but they're not. They're completely schizophrenic. They're multi-platform, multimedia, multi-sensorial, and what you have to do is just control your message as best you can within every single touch point and make that experience rich within every single touch point so that you hope that you can cut through.
So your online commerce should complement your retail.
Well, it should be together, no? And also there's all these new technologies developing that make online shopping easier and more exciting, and it shouldn't go against the brick and mortar. When I was at Intermix, when I first started Intermix, they were so against having e-commerce. They thought it was going to steal from their stores. It was the craziest thing ever. And it's all the same thing. It's branding, like Quynh said. It's one brand, and it's about being nimble. It's about being able to just work with what the consumer is doing and how quickly things are changing. And you have to be hyper aware of that. But it's not one versus the other necessarily.
And I do think that a huge disruptive force in retail right now, which is just starting to percolate, is the social shopping. You know, the rise of Pinterest being a big one, but also sites like Shoe Dazzle and the Style Mint, Jewel Mint, Beach Mint group,
right.
Which I was very fortunate to work on the launch of with Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen for Style Mint, is that these smart technologists are starting to understand that people enjoy shopping as they do gaming, and that they're building these gaming techniques into it, that they're overlaying it with personalization and purchase history. And I think that's something that, you know, traditional retail is going to have to really fight hard with, because they're making shopping fun and they're making it affordable and personal. And that's something that, you know, sadly the Macy's and the Saks and the Nordstroms and Lehman's just haven't figured out. You know, how do they keep that customer retention management system running in a personable one-to-one dialogue? And I think that for me, as looking in the fashion industry, is probably our biggest disruption in sort of the online space, that personalization and gaming metric that people are playing with now.
Right. Now with Tibi, you have a retail store, and you're in 300 department stores, specialty stores, and you have e-commerce is what, 2 years old now for Tibi? Year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. But then Shopbop is probably the biggest outlet outside of your own personal.
For online?
Yes.
It's one of the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we sell, you know, Shopbop, Net-a-Porter, Saks.com, you know, all the direct businesses, department stores.
Okay. And Elaine, you agreed with Jennifer and Quynh that they have to complement each other. They're not in competition.
Oh, I 150 million % agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, coming from
150 million %.
coming from
Sure.
coming from a media background back in the day, you know, I remember working in the music industry, and
you brought up a great point last night when we were chatting on the phone. You said really the music industry was the driver of all of
I mean, I think they were
new
the
wave of marketing.
First industry to really feel the impact of the internet and what this new distribution channel could do to the core business. So, you know, back in the day, it was, you know, everything was separate, and they were so scared to invest and explore and put their content out there, and they still are, which is, you know, a little bit unfortunate. But obviously, the magazine companies and the newspaper companies are learning to let go a little bit, because, you know, like Quynh said, it's not just, they're not different routes. It's all, you know, one big mall of opportunity and options, and I think at Tibi that's what we're trying to do, you know, in terms of our own branded boutiques. We have a flagship in Soho in New York City and an outlet down in Georgia in St. Simon's. But we only have that one boutique. So, in terms of the question about whether online can eclipse retail, I can only say that I know online will continue to grow. At what point it actually eclipses retail is, I think, a TBD. But they definitely have to work in concert. It's the same thing, the same brand.
Bloggers have certainly been a big part of driving brands, but are they still a valid method of marketing and promoting a brand? Now that we've all kind of learned that they're not as cool as we thought in there. There's a lot of pay-to-play going on, and when you have big corporations paying their bills and paying, airline flights and hotels, suddenly their street credibility seems to disappear. Jennifer, do you think bloggers are still?
I don't think their street credibility is disappearing.
Oh,
I think that they're repped by agents, and there are new little celebrities, granted. But then again, these are kids that learned about fashion from their bedrooms and on their computers, like in Ohio or in Middle America and places, and they had value. They talked about things, and again, it's about talking to the consumer one-to-one. I think that's how they brought credibility to it. Yes, in certain ways, they've eclipsed editors in fashion shows
and real hardcore journalists, which I think the New York Times style session editors had a hard time with that one.
I'm definitely not fighting for them. I'm just saying that they certainly have a lot of clout, and we have to just embrace that because the consumer does listen to them. So it's a matter of how you use them and utilize them.
Okay, so they're not going away. Quynh,
I don't think they're going away.
What's your opinion on using bloggers to drive your brand?
I think they're not going away because they serve a very important purpose in the retail business, which is a merchandising issue. When you work for a singular brand, you can't mix the clothes with other brands. So if you're on Calvin Klein's site, all they wear from head to toe is Calvin Klein, and no woman dresses like that. No man dresses like that anymore. Nobody dresses head to toe. So from a marketing, merchandising perspective, you need them because they show you how to wear real clothes, on real bodies. They're not size zero, waist. And I think that for that, they will be for a very long period of time a very influential part of the fashion business. I think the issue that they're coming to head with now is the issue of truth and transparency. If you are being flown to Paris from a brand to cover X, do you state it? I think people in 2008, when the economy sort of fell under and people started not trusting brands as much as they did before, bloggers rose because they seemed like a credible voice. But the problem that they have right now is unless they can really show utter transparency to their audience, they're going to lose that trust factor as well. And that's it's a moment for them. I think some will survive it and prosper, and a lot of them are starting to wane.
Elaine, you guys at Tibi have a good relationship with the Man Repeller, I know, and has that helped drive Tibi?
It certainly has. I think that Leandra has been a great friend to Tibi and a great friend to Amy, who is the owner and creative officer.
I don't know if our audience knows about the Man Repeller. It's pretty cute. It started off as kind of a joke. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah,
it's a fun blog. You should check it out. It's all the clothes that men hate.
Women love.
Women love. Yeah. Anything that doesn't show the shape of a woman, parachute pants, harem pants,
things like that. And she's a quite witty young woman.
Super cool young girl, very smart. Yeah.
Particular voice. But we work with a lot of other bloggers too. I think the approach that Tibi has taken, which I think is a good one, is that we really do have an authentic friendship with these bloggers and these voices, and it's really important to us that they actually like Tibi and they want to wear Tibi, and
they have an audience who's going to buy Tibi.
Yeah, it's that's definitely bloggers that we've identified, or editors or tastemakers who we feel are more in line with the Tibi brand, it's a really, really important segment for us. And again, I think we take a very authentic approach. We want them to really like it and believe in it. And I think it shows in the way they style the clothing, because if they really believe in your brand, that means they understand who
Right.
you are.
That's what Quynh and Jennifer, Quynh was saying that. It's true that, it's more powerful somehow now to see it on a real person. Who would have thought? Versus it's sure a lot cheaper than having to do these big expensive shoots like everyone did in the 80s and 90s. So the transition to mobile, ladies, how big of a priority is it? Jennifer, you want to start with that? With mobile? I mean, I know you're public relations, but is that a driving concern with your clients?
I think it's important, of course, to have to be able to be accessible for someone that's always running around and on the go, which is everybody. So people don't necessarily work in offices and do things that are stabilized every day. So you want to have accessibility to it. I'm not quite sure about apps, how important that is necessarily, but I think utilizing the social media on mobile devices is extremely important. Apps, it takes a lot to have to look up a company and find, it should really go through a lot of steps in order to find who they are, So I think it's more about being a part of social media dialogue on mobile.
Quynh, do you see people watching fashion films on their smartphones?
I think that mobile consumption happened with a smartphone, and that hasn't been that many years, and mobile growth is so fast and furious. But I think what brands forget is that people are on mobile not because they want to interact with brands, but they're looking at maps, locations, filling up 5-minute gaps when their friend's late for a coffee date and they want to check Facebook or check a picture of Instagram. So when you get to dig deep into why people are on mobile, and a lot of the time shopping, unless it's flash sales and you need to get that handbag because there's only 10 of them and it might sell out, hasn't been particularly effective for the retail environment. So I always say to brands that I work with, unless you want just a great story in Mashable or TechCrunch that you came up with this great app idea and you don't care about numbers, you don't care about engagement, don't spend money on an app. It's not something that people want from a brand right now. They want news, they want games, they want other information. Now, how do brands insert themselves into that? I think that's a question that everyone during this conference and advertising are questioning. How do we do that? Because so many of the banner ads that people have been spending on mobile apps are just mistakes. It's such a small screen. You're pressing, you're clicking through, and that's very erroneous. I think for the retail industry, mobile is a way to see how we fit into the conversation dialogue that I'm having now, which is a way to see where we can organically fit into that user behavior. Unless, again, you're a flash sale or you're offering something that's very time sensitive.
Is mobile in Tibi's business plan right now, or?
It's something that we're definitely thinking about, and we're actually putting together our budgets and strategic plans for next year. My personal opinion, I lean, where Quynh is. I think, going into the app space doesn't make sense for a single brand retailer because there's just a discoverability issue. I mean, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of apps, in the App Store for both Droid and the iOS platforms. I think things still need to be shaken out. And from Tibi's perspective, we've got a lot of other strategic priorities, such as looking at our international expansion that I think we will possibly weigh more heavily. The thing that I do want to explore more is, mobile advertising, right? To the extent that these mobile ad networks are popping up and collecting, remnant inventory from other mobile sites. That is something that could be interesting. But mobile, in terms of investing in mobile optimized sites, is something that I think is still to be.
Elaine, where are you spending most of your marketing dollars right now?
Most of our marketing dollars is online SEM, and we've recently taken a couple of print ads in Vogue. I mean, obviously not a cheap option.
Old school.
2-page in the September issue and 1-page in the October issue, and it's an interesting test for us. It definitely doesn't have measurability built in, but it's something that we felt that we wanted to do and we were ready to do.
Okay, I don't think we have a lot of time left, but I'd love to take a question. We're out of time. Gary says, aw.
can take a question.
Yeah, does anybody have a question? Sure.
Do you guys are hired in brand. Do you have an email active?
I don't even know if my microphone's on. Is it on?
Hello.
Okay.
Do you guys as brand, or have you like DSF and Tibi and all that, have you had email acquisition strategies? And if so, how do you find your consumer? Because most of the email acquisition I know tends to be lower consumer, not that I love you, great people, but JCPenney, Famous Footwear, that kind. How do the higher end brands find a consumer to begin that email engagement with?
Probably in their retail store, right?
In the retail store, with great difficulty. It's one of, I always say to brands, it's easier now to find a Facebook fan, which is really the email of the future, than you would an email address, because so many, you look at the numbers, people are running away from subscription on email as fast as they possibly can. So even that idea of getting that consumer doesn't mean that you're going to be able to keep them. One way that we've been able to gain that in the past is basically usurping another person's email database, working with a publisher and doing a program where there's an opt-in email for a great prize or a great experience. Then I don't even know if you're, again, getting your real consumer or somebody who wants the prize.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult. I do prefer a Facebook like to that, just because we know that the consumer is spending so much time on Facebook. We know that we can remarket to them. The unlike button is really hard to find.
Very hard.
So you keep them longer than a simple unsubscribe, to be perfectly frank.
And then you'll just direct to your spam box like I will. Tibi's the only one I don't, because I don't know, they're so gorgeous when they come in. I'm a fan of the company. But there aren't many that I let come into my direct email.
We always say that if somebody really is engaged with the brand, they will voluntarily put the emails to you, and those are the super engaged type of brands. It's organic.
Yeah.
The numbers will never be incredibly high, but they should convert incredibly well, because that's a very engaged audience, and be satisfied with that. Just keep that engagement on that very small audience incredibly high, and try to convert them to share it with their friends rather than trying to just get more numbers.
Yeah, we also employ, when you come to Tibi.com, so assuming the acquisition channel on, Google or wherever is working, you come to Tibi.com, there is a call to action that if you supply your email address, you can get, X% off your first purchase. And we are testing, for certain promotions that we're running, if you invite a friend, or if you give a friend's email address, you get something, extra than you otherwise would.
It's probably harder now than ever. In the beginning, when 5-6 years ago, somebody asked me for my email address, I just gave it out like I thought I had to. And now I'm very Urban Outfitters. No, you can't have it.
Or you get a fake one.
Or you get a fake one, exactly. Gary, is that it? Party's over.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.